Yugo GV, the car that made walking look luxurious. The Yugo GV, a car so bad. It became a punchline the moment it rolled off the ship. The GV stood for great value, but owners quickly learned it really meant gets vacuumed because it breaks down so often. Born in the 1980s and imported from Yugoslavia, the Yugo was marketed as America's most affordable new car. For just under $4,000, you could drive something brand new. What the ads didn't mention was that you'd also get a free subscription to roadside assistance because you'd need it. The Yugo's story started with good intentions. A socialist nation wanted to prove it could build a car for the people, simple, practical, and cheap. The problem? It was too cheap. Everything about it screamed cost-cutting. The doors rattled, the dashboard shook, and the air vents didn't actually vent anything. Even the windshield wipers seemed confused about their purpose. Performance. Calling it slow would be generous. The 55 horsepower engine struggled so hard that merging onto a highway felt like an act of bravery. Owners often joked that it came with two speeds. Stop and almost moving. Going uphill required faith, momentum, and sometimes a push from friends. Reliability. Legendary in the worst way. Reviewers said the Yugo could go from 0 to 60 and eventually, but from running to broken in seconds. Hoffman, the car that redefined wrong. If there were a museum for bad ideas, the Hoffman would have its own private wing. Built in post-war Germany sometime in the 1950s, this bizarre microcar looks like it was designed by someone who had only ever heard about cars, but never actually seen one. At first glance, the Hoffman looks confused. It has wheels, yes, but they seem to have been placed by a random number generator. The steering wheel isn't connected to the front wheels. It's connected to the rear wheel. That's right, the car steers from the back, which is like trying to balance a broom on your finger while it's on fire. Driving it was chaos. Turn the wheel too quickly, and you'd spin like a carnival ride. Go straight, and it drifted sideways like a stubborn shopping cart. Reverse, forget it. The Hoffman didn't reverse, it reconsidered life choices. Inside, it wasn't much better. The driver sat dangerously close to the engine, which was both loud and hot enough to cook sausages mid-drive. The gear lever was placed somewhere that required yoga-level flexibility and the visibility. Let's just say you had a better chance seeing out of a submarine. What makes it all funnier is that the Hoffman wasn't a one-off joke hit, was a real attempt to innovate. The creator genuinely thought rear-wheel steering would revolutionize car design. Instead, it revolutionized spin-outs. The Dodge La Femme, the car that answered a question absolutely no one asked. What if we made a car just for women and painted it entirely pink? Born in the mid-1950s, the La Femme was Dodge's attempt to tap into the female driver market. Instead of giving it better visibility, better handling, or if you know anything useful, they decided to make it a fashion statement. Their entire design brief basically read, add lipstick, call it innovation. The La Femme came into delicate shades of heather rose and sapphire, white with matching rose-colored upholstery embroidered with little pink flowers. But that wasn't all. The car came fully accessorized with a matching pink purse, a compact mirror, a lipstick case, a rain hat, and even a matching pink raincoat that stored neatly behind the front seat. Because, of course, when you're driving a 5,000-pound V8 sedan, what you really need is a hat. Dodge actually thought this was genius. Their ad campaign proudly declared it the world's first car designed, especially for the modern woman. But women in the 1950s weren't exactly impressed. They didn't want a pink handbag on wheels. They wanted a car that worked as well as their husbands. The La Femme became an instant joke. More fashion show than functional car. Mechanically, it was just a regular Dodge Custom Royal, big, heavy, and thirsty. But the marketing made it seem like Dodge thought women couldn't handle real Trabant 50, the car that time and logic forgot. If you've ever wondered what happens when a car is built entirely out of desperation, meet the Trabant 50, East Germany's proudest achievement in barely functional transportation. Nicknamed the Trabi, this little box on wheels was introduced in 1957 and stayed almost unchanged for over 30 years. To say it was outdated is an understatement. This car was born obsolete. While the rest of the world got sleeker, faster, and smarter, the Trabant just existed. Like that one toaster in your kitchen that somehow still works but smells like regret. The first thing you notice about the Trabant 50 is its body, not metal, not fiberglass, but a material called Buroplast, made from recycled cotton waste and resin. In simple terms, it was basically pressed fabric. So yes, technically, the Trabant was a biodegradable car before it was cool. Just don't park it too close to a bonfire. Under the hood sat a two-cylinder, two-stroke engine that puffed blue smoke like a stressed-out factory chimney. It made a heroic 18 horsepower, enough to reach 60 miles per hour if the wind was kind and gravity helped. The smell of burnt oil followed every Trabant like a loyal pet. Starting it was an adventure too. It didn't so much start as it negotiated. Drivers often had to shake, choke, and plead with it, like trying to convince a grumpy old man to get out of bed. Once running, the noise was so loud that you couldn't hear your passengers or your own regrets. Inside, luxury was non-existent. Fiat Multiple, the car that looked surprised to be alive. If there were a contest for the weirdest looking car ever made, the Fiat Multiple would not just win, it would host the event, hand out the trophies, and then apologize for showing up. Launched in 1998, the Multiple was Fiat's attempt at creating a family-friendly compact MPV that could seat 6 people. And technically, it did. Unfortunately, it looked like two different cars had a head-on collision and decided to stay that way. The first thing you notice about the Multiple is that face. It had headlights in 2 different layers, one set above the hood and another below. The result? A car that looked permanently startled, like it had just realized how ugly it was. Some said it looked like a frog. Others said it looked like a melted alien. But no one, absolutely no one, called it beautiful. Fiat defended the design by saying it was bold and functional. Sure, if bold means terrifying small children at crosswalks. Even Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear once called it the ugliest car in the world, which is saying something, because he's seen everything. Inside, the Multiple was actually clever. 6 seats, 3 in front, 3 in back, and tons of space. It was practical, efficient, and surprisingly fun to drive. But no one cared, because from the outside it looked like a car drawn by someone wearing oven mitts. Fiat engineers might have built a genius machine, but the designers clearly missed the memo about aesthetics. The funniest part, Fiat actually put the Multiple on display in museums, not car museums. Design museums. As in, look, this is what happens when creativity escapes supervision. Despite the mockery, the Multiple developed a cult following. Some people loved its weirdness. Others bought it just for the laughs. Zundap Janus, the car that couldn't decide which way was front. If a car could have an identity crisis, it would be the Zundap Janus. This strange little machine, built in 1957 by a German motorcycle company, looked like 2 cars crashed headfirst into each other and decided to just keep it that way. Named after Janus, the Roman god with 2 faces, one looking forward and one backward. This tiny bubble car took that theme way too literally. From either end, it looked identical. The front was the back. The back was the front. If you were standing behind it, you couldn't even tell which direction it was supposed to go. It was the only car in history that could confuse traffic itself. Opening the doors didn't help either. The driver and passenger entered through a front door that opened outward like a fridge. Passengers in the back, they had their own rear door. So yes, it had 2 doors, one on each end, like a rolling refrigerator for humans. Inside, things got even funnier. The seats were arranged back to back, a front passengers faced forward, and the rear passengers faced backward. That meant you were either watching the road ahead or staring directly at someone else's horrified face during a crash. Family road trips must have been an awkward staring contest with added motion sickness. Under the hood, actually, under the middle seat, sat a 1-cylinder, 2-stroke engine making just 14 horsepower. It could reach 50 miles per hour if you prayed hard enough, and had no luggage. The sound it made was somewhere between a chainsaw and a blender having an emotional breakdown. Zundap had big dreams. They wanted the Janus to compete with other microcars like the BMW Isetta. But where the Isetta looked cute, the Janus looked confused. Reviewers didn't know whether to drive it or exorcise it. One journalist joked, "It's the only car that looks like it's trying to leave itself." The company built fewer than 7,000 units before pulling the plug in 1958. Turns out, making motorcycles doesn't mean Ford Edsel the $250 million oops. If cars could talk, the Ford Edsel would probably start by saying, "It seemed like a good idea at the time." Launched in 1957, the Edsel was meant to be the crown jewel of Ford's empire, the car that would define a new era of American luxury. Instead, it defined what failure looks like when you throw $250 million at it. Ford was convinced America needed something completely new. They spent $250 million developing the Edsel. That's over $2.5 billion today on marketing, showrooms, and hype. When the big reveal came, people expected a miracle. What they got looked like a confused horse with a mustache. That infamous vertical toilet seat grille is now legendary, but at the time it was just confusing. Ford designers wanted something bold, something to stand out on the highway. And fortunately, what they built stood out for all the wrong reasons. Some called it a jet intake. Others said it looked like a Buick that had eaten a lemon. The problems didn't stop there. Ford bragged about the Edsel's teletouch transmission, fancy push buttons mounted right in the steering wheel. Sounds futuristic, right? Until you tried to honk the horn and accidentally threw the car in reverse. It was a mechanic's nightmare and a driver's comedy sketch. Then came the timing. The Edsel launched right as the U.S. economy slowed in 1958. People wanted small, affordable cars. Ford gave them a 19-foot chrome spaceship. It was like trying to sell diamond cufflinks during a factory strike. And oh, the marketing. Ford built an entire mythology around this car: secret teaser ads, mysterious slogans, even nationwide countdowns. When people finally saw the Edsel, their reaction wasn't awe. It was laughter. The name itself became shorthand for bad idea. By 1960, Ford quietly pulled the plug. The Edsel had sold fewer than 120,000 units, far short of the millions they'd planned. The brand disappeared faster than a politician's promise. But here's the twist: today, the Edsel is iconic. It's no longer a failure, it's a lesson. A perfect symbol of how ambition, ego, and poor timing can collide in one gloriously shiny disaster. The Ford Edsel didn't just fail, it taught America how to fail in style. Nash Air Flight, the car that tried to fly without wings. In the late 1940s, America was dreaming about jet planes and rocket ships. Nash Motors thought, why not build a car that looks like one? Thus came the Nash Air Flight, a vehicle that promised aerodynamic perfection and ended up looking like a bar of soap on wheels. It was round, it was smooth, and it was strange. People didn't know whether to drive it or toss it in the bath. The Air Flight was supposed to be revolutionary. Nash's engineers took aerodynamics seriously. They spent years testing it in wind tunnels. The result? A car so streamlined that it had no front grille. Instead, it had a giant oval nose that made it look like it was perpetually holding its breath. The idea was that the shape would cut through the wind and boost fuel efficiency. And technically, it worked, but at a cost. The car's design was so rounded that visibility was awful. You couldn't see where the hood ended or where the trunk began. Parking it felt like flying blind. And because the body was sealed for aero efficiency, it also trapped heat, turning every air flight into a mobile sauna in summer. Nash bragged that its design reduced drag. Drivers complained it reduced comfort, dignity, and fresh air. Inside, though, the Air Flight was bizarrely practical. Its seats could fold down into a bed, with selling point for road trippers and newlyweds alike. Nash proudly advertised it as the car you can sleep in,